Hey, how is it going, everybody? Just Gamer here. Just want to talk a little bit about Gearbox and their new game they just recently announced called 1v1. Now, honestly, I couldn't care less about it. Okay, it's no secret. Really, anything that comes from Gearbox falls into one of these two categories where it's either unplayable garbage, such as Alien Colonial Marines and Duke Nukem Forever, or it's okay, has a really good concept, but then it's ruined by something like a small player base like Battleborn, or just really bad microtransactions that eventually lead to a small player base, such as with Evolve. Now, what these did, however, get me thinking about were things that I would like for the one franchise Gearbox does have that, I think most agree is pretty good. And that franchise is, of course, Borderlands. So, while Gearbox chooses to waste our time with yet another game that so far in any of the articles I've seen about it has simply been described as not Borderlands, and while we wait on the inevitable announcement of number 3, I wanted to share just a couple of changes that I think would really take Borderlands to the next level. Starting off with, and this is really a simple request, let us choose the gender of our characters, no matter what class we decide to play. Okay, don't get me wrong, I don't care about the gender of a character if it has to do with the story, if it's relevant to something, but really, in Borderlands, that's not the case. There's really no reason aside from, your character making a couple of comments here or there while you're playing. There's really no reason I see that you have to play as one gender or the other. Let us customize our character a little bit more, which actually brings me into our next point. More customization for characters, just all around anyways. I mean, the skin system that has been in Borderlands 2, and pretty sure it's the same thing in Borderlands 3, it's been a while, but the skin system was fine, but, open it up a little bit more. Let us change the color on those patterns that you're giving us, or, let us just get individual items and really customize our character. That really helps, at least in my case. The more I can customize, the more I can make my character look different in a way that maybe no one else is really going to have or very unlikely to. It makes me feel a lot more connected. It makes me like my character a lot more, especially in a game where you're playing with other characters and other people. Now, next up is the loot and gear. Now, we all love the loot. In fact, the only thing I think we love more than loot is more loot. And Borderlands already has more guns than any single player could ever ask for. But what if they were to expand that beyond just a few weapons and accessories? What what awesome gear might we actually find in the Borderlands universe? Maybe boots that let you jump higher or hover, or maybe a chest piece that has some kind of new resistance to it. I would love for Borderlands 3 to take the franchise from one with millions of gun variations to billions of character variations. Now, we just need something to do with all that new gear to really put it to the test, which brings me to the next neat addition, competitive mode. Now, co-op is, of course, the main draw of Borderlands, and I have no desire to see that change and turn into just full-on multiplayer versus. But who can deny that a competitive mode that allows you and your friends to test your skill and power against others wouldn't be awesome? I mean, as I said, co-op with friends is Borderlands' big draw, so finding a way to bring that into with a versus mode, it could be tricky, okay, without making it too generic. But I personally think it's doable. I actually imagine like a PvPvE where the focus is on an objective such as destroying some huge enemy while gaining bonus points for killing members of the opposing team. To me, that sounds pretty awesome. Granted, this isn't a feature that I really expect, but it would be truly appreciated. And finally, the last change needed for Borderlands, bosses, enemies, and fighting variation. More specifically, more variations of enemies and bosses mixed with more varied ways to take them down. Instead of just an ever-changing pool of health, shields, and armor, how about an enemy that actually requires some, tactic? I look at it like this, okay? Recently, a lot of people played Horizon Zero Dawn, and in there, you can just shoot or beat on an enemy, and eventually they will fall. Or you can go the more effective route of taking out its weapons, or taking out its armor in specific spots to reveal weak points. If Borderlands enemies did something like this, it would take the game's combat to a new level by adding those choices that you get to make while combating your enemy. Instead of just picking what weapon you want to use to keep on blasting until he falls, you want to look for those weak points. You want to know something about your enemy. You want to know where it's going to be hiding, its real weak point, and you want to break through and get that. And I think that would get it Borderlands out of that bullet sponge area that I think a lot of people are just over. You know, a lot of games look at the Division, which I know does still have a pretty decent player base. But a lot of people who left were, that was the reason. I mean, you basically get gear, they get stronger, they get more, you get stronger, they get more spongy. Rinse, repeat. People are ready for something more, and honestly, something more isn't new. It's just the way we used to do things, where it wasn't just shoot the enemy, it was figure out how to beat the enemy, and that's what Borderlands 3 needs. Now, as a bonus, there is also one thing that I wanted to add that absolutely cannot change in Borderlands, and that is no microtransactions. I mean that. I'm all for DLC, considering it adds more to a game that I love. In Borderlands' case, it is actually usually pretty entertaining. But microtransactions, they have nowhere to fit. And even trying to bring them in would require changes to both the balancing and the loot that nobody wants. And that's how that works. There's a lot going on, people talking about the new Lord of the Rings game, the Shadow of War. And they're bringing in microtransactions for a single player game. Some people are saying, oh, you don't have to buy them. But the thing is, in a game like that, especially in a single player game, where it is about playing the game, getting more stuff, grinding it out, yada yada yada. If they have that option there, what they're going to do is they're going to increase that grind, because they're not putting microtransactions in there for those who simply want it. They want you to buy those, so they're going to make it more enticing by making everything else a little slower. And that right there, in a game like Borderlands, where the loot and getting more and more loot really is such a big part of it. I mean, I don't know if I call it the most important part, because me personally, I love hopping on there and shooting with friends, but it is a very big part. So let's keep the microtransactions out of our Borderlands. Thank you very much. Well, those are what I think would be great changes for Borderlands 3. Now, do you agree? Do you think I'm way off? Tell me in the comments. Drop the video a like if you enjoyed it. And do me a favor, subscribe for future content.